make more good in the all-new Sportage X-Pro. Kia, movement that inspires.
Quaker Steak and Lube is throwing open the garage doors and setting up the umbrellas. It's patio season. Come enjoy great food, drinks, and fun in the sun. There's always something happening at Quaker Steak and Lube, but we're really amping up our event calendars for our favorite time of year. Visit thelube.com to find out what's happening at your local Lube this season. Lunch, happy hour, dinner, or late night, indoors or outside, at Quaker Steak and Lube, you'll always find big flavors, friendly faces, and lots of fun.
New Trail Brewing Company proudly crafts their beers right here in central Pennsylvania. Brewed with only the best possible ingredients, New Trail produces a variety of year-round brands as well as weekly experimental recipes. New Trail Broken Heels is Pennsylvania's favorite local hazy IPA. This beer is smooth and full-bodied. Hand-selected Citra hops lead to notes of bright clementine and juicy ruby red grapefruit. Broken Heels is perfect for a pregame tailgate all the way through the victory celebration.
What's the best mid-size pickup? Tacoma. What's the #1 mid-size truck in resale value? Tacoma. Want to get great gas mileage, 4 doors, and 4-wheel drive? Tacoma. Seoka Toyota of Williamsport has over 25 available right now. You can lease a brand new, never-driven Toyota Tacoma for just $379 a month. That's 30 months, 3,000 cash or trade, 10,000 miles a year. This is while supplies last. Buy yours or reserve yours today and see the Seoka difference. And remember, tell them Johnny sent you.
We welcome you into another edition of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead Show on a Thursday afternoon. It is the Tuesday afternoon.
Whoa.
I had a 50-50 shot. This week, I'm telling you, this week has been long enough that it feels like it should be a Thursday.
Oh, my God. My whole tailgating, everything just crashed in front of me. I'm like, wait a minute. It's already Thursday?
2 days to get ready?
Oh, my God.
Yeah, Tuesday afternoon. My gosh.
I want to rewind that.
I'm telling you, today has been a long enough day. It could have been 5 days in one. It should be Friday in my mind right now. But let's get into get your thoughts, Goon, on the Central Michigan game. Certainly did not play out the way you wanted. The second quarter was disappointing, but at the end of the day, especially when you start looking around, at least for me, you start looking around at what else is happening in college football. You look what happened to Miami and Florida. You look at, some of the other upsets, some of the other close games. Georgia struggling with Kent State, Oklahoma. And it's like, it's a win, and it was a comfortable win at the end of the day. You still accomplished a lot of the objectives in terms of getting different guys playing time, and I think I don't know. I coming off of the Auburn game, I'm willing to let this one go as, a little bit of a letdown, not a big deal. I think this team comes back pretty fired up for the Northwestern game because it is a Big Ten game. And I think, now you have that experience of the Central Michigan game. I just think they'll be dialed in, take care of business here on Saturday, and then – really the 3-game, it's the middle portion of the schedule, and it's been the make or break part of the schedule for the last several years, and it will be again with, it's Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio State. That's going to determine your season and whether it is a fantastic, unbelievable season, a pretty doggone good season, or a, there we go again type of season, because they could go, it's not inconceivable they could go 3-0. It's not inconceivable they could go 0-3 in that 3-game stretch. And I think obviously you'd like to get to the at least 2-1 in those 3 games. But really, even 1-2, I think you come out of that with a chance to still finish 10-2. Have some work to be done for sure, not gimmies in the final 3. But I think that this team, if it can take care of business against Northwestern, go 2-1 somehow in that 3-game stretch, you are setting yourself up for what could be a very, very special season.
After that 2-1, man, you're going for the whole shebang here, Bubba.
Well, sure. I think 11-1. There is not a Penn State fan on the planet that wouldn't have taken 11-1 at the start of the season.
We'd all given a right, for that record. So, CMU Central Michigan game. sort of expected to be that type of a hangover. I mean, you've watched enough sports and this and that. When you come off of a huge game like we just had down in Auburn, a great environment, you have a great road win. You're all together on the plane ride home. You're together all week for practice, and you go out to play Central Michigan. And our fans were a little ho hum and this and that, as expected. We were coming off of a huge win for ourselves as fans. I mean, that Auburn game was a huge, because we all went into it skeptical as hell, and then as to play as well as we did and come out of it the way we did, it was expected that was going to happen this past week. So this week it was the hangover game, and then this week, if we didn't have a bye next week, this would be the trap game of all trap games. You know what I mean? Because Northwestern this is their MO is to sneak up and then knock one team off a freaking year is what they do. So I think with the bye next week, I think we're just completely like, let's get this game in, out, over, bang, bang, kill these guys, get them out of the way quick, and then get on to our bye week, and then get on the real meat of the schedule. And I think that's the way it's going to be going.
Yeah, and I will say to play the Joe Paterno role and give the other guys some credit.
Sure.
There were some fantastic catches. I mean, like that is a Central Michigan team that, I mean, there is no doubt that the Chippewas played their best game of the season. And there was some, again, a little bit of a mix of both. I mean, I don't think Penn State certainly played its best game of the season, but I also think Central Michigan made some terrific plays. And, sometimes you do have to just doff your cap and give some credit.
They rallied together and came back, and, they had some tough losses. And
they
came up here and they played their tails off and did a heck of a job. And
I think McElwain and that staff have to be thrilled with what they saw from their kids, because, listen, that game was on its way to being what everybody thought it was going to be.
It should have been late. I mean, it should have been 2 or 3 more touches for Penn State to end the game, in my opinion. That was my projection of the game. And how it tracked was what I thought, with the hangover, come out slow. CMU's offense was a little scary, but CMU's defense was the one that was the one who was questionable, because they're not that good. And, I think we should have hung some more points on them, especially late in the game when they were done. They'd been playing a long day. And it for as cool as it was in the morning, it got hot as hell during that game.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, really did. And we were all dressed up for a colder type of day. So player-wise, I'm sure that they were done and they were worn out. And, Penn State should have put the foot to the gas a little bit more late in the fourth quarter and gotten a couple more scores. But it is what it is. They got out of it. Nothing injury-wise that I can recall, huge-wise, big injury-wise.
Yeah.
I know Chris and I talked on the other shows about the kicking game is starting to become a worrisome thing. Now it's 2 weeks in a row now.
Yeah.
We had some issues with that. When we did the first 2 games of the year, they were well ahead of everybody else, and now they're just ho-hum right now.
Yeah. Although the punting continues to be crazy impressive. But yes, the overall kicking game is at least a concern at this stage of the season. But I will say this is, and I hear what you're saying about Northwestern seems to pull out the game every year. This is a pretty poor Northwestern team. I mean, these guys are struggling, and I think if you're Penn State, you need to put together a similar first quarter and then just lay the hammer down here this Saturday and get that separation that you're expecting and wanting, and be able to put it into coasting gear in the second half here on Saturday.
And then, again, this is a bye week. It's like get in, get out, nobody hurt, get some guys playing. And that's the other thing we got to talk about, and that is that we're at that point in the season where coaches are making decisions on if guys are going to redshirt or not. So if there was any kind of speculation going into that game this past week of if guys were going to redshirt or if they were going to play, because I would have liked to have played 150 guys that game. Now, the score never allowed us to do that, but also it gives you a little better idea of how the coaches want to handle the players that want to redshirt or who they're going to redshirt. But we don't have an idea of that yet or now because
I think we know Singleton and Allen are going to redshirt, right? Like I think we've seen the last of them for till next year. You got to save.
You don't need them.
Yeah,
you got a lot of depth there. It's been a position of non-importance in the last few years for
right.
us.
No, and listen, I like they give you different things. I mean, everybody was, including me, was all about Singleton, and now Allen, showed you some stuff between the tackles. I think that they are both tremendous talents. I still think Singleton is just a phenomenally special player, but Allen is pretty darn special in his own right. And again, I think that they just give you a nice 1-2 combo there. And I think you're going to see as the season progresses, more opportunities given for those two to be in the same backfield at the same time to keep defenses guessing, right? Like that is
damn right.
You do a little play action to one side with one and then throw back to the other on the other side in some open space. That gives you some
Michigan thinking for the next 2 weeks. Like,
for sure.
What the hell? We got to I'd put 4 running backs out there and do some razzle-dazzle stuff and screw with Michigan all we can.
Yeah, I do. I still overall just like the trajectory of this season. And again, I realize Saturday was not the overwhelming success that I think folks were anticipating. But at the end of the day, again, it was a comfortable win. I don't think there was
bullish
much danger in the second half. Listen, I bullish as far as it goes. That 3-game stretch, I want to see how Penn State handles the road game with Michigan, that game with Minnesota. We'll see, but that could be. I mean, it could be 3 straight matchups if Penn State can hold up its end of the bargain. It could be 3 straight matchups of top 10 teams going against each other in those 3 games. I mean, if Penn State, takes care of business against Northwestern, it should be in the top 10 by the time it travels to Ann Arbor. And certainly if Penn State beats Michigan and Minnesota remains undefeated, I think both those teams, Penn State will be in the top 10 for sure, obviously, but I think Minnesota will be as well at that point if the Golden Gophers continue on their current track. And then, Ohio State does look really, really good. That offense looks really, really special. But I will say, I think there is more, even though it seems like it's the same teams every year in terms of the college football playoffs, and it has been. I also really do think that there is less separation now. And even, going into this weekend, everybody, including me, was, Georgia is heads and shoulders, and probably Alabama too, even though Alabama had, a little bit of a disappointing showing earlier. Well, then Georgia looked very pedestrian against Kent State, right? I mean, that was that Kent State team gave Georgia every bit what Central Michigan gave Penn State, and then some, really. And so, and Kent State's offense moved the ball with some effectiveness against that vaunted Georgia D. Right. So, so at the end of the day, listen, I still think Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State, I think those 3 teams are still the teams to beat. But I don't think it's going to take as supreme of an effort as, I thought it would have a few years ago to beat an Alabama or a Clemson when they were, going to the championship game each season. I don't think there's as much separation. And listen, I think, you've seen Clemson come back. I mean, that they were right down to the wire there with Wake Forest. I mean, it went to overtime, and that was a toss-up game. And so I think while Alabama and Georgia clearly have things rolling right now, and Ohio State has things rolling, it doesn't take a lot to get things off the tracks just a little bit in today's college football and college sports environment. So, again, I still think those are the teams to beat. I still think Penn State has some work to do, but I do really like the trajectory that this team remains on, and I'm
like where it's at right now.
Yeah, and I'm very optimistic that this Saturday will be a game more like what we were expecting against Central Michigan. I don't know that it's going to be like a 63-7, like absolute beat-down blowout. I'm not sure it won't be either, but I do think it's going to be very comfortable, and by midway in the third quarter, you know that you're going to be able to empty the bench and get a lot of guys in. I really do.
But, I really, really think that James and this staff, they gelled pretty damn quick, and they learned from a lot of the mistakes of their past few years. I really have noticed that.
And we're going to find out. I mean, like I said, that I think so too. But I want to see that 3-game stretch, and it starts with what we've been talking about with the, James Franklin's bye week record. You got to come off of that bye week and do something.
That's where I'm going with it, and that is that he's learning from stuff that he has made, like issues with the mistakes in the past. He seems to be learning from them from the past few years, and he's, getting the teams ready, our team ready to go, his team ready to go, and. The bye week is the biggest issue I have with James, and that is his record after a bye week. It's just unbelievably bad. But that's going to have to change. It has to change, otherwise we're in trouble. And I just think that he has done such a good job of learning from his past mistakes the last few years that I think that that's going to be next on his list of repairing and fixing and doing better than he had done in the past. I really do.
Yeah, and it's interesting because watching that Michigan-Maryland game, I still think Michigan is good.
Yeah.
And here's where I'm at: is I'm not 100% sure that we're going to know even after that Michigan game really where Penn State is, because I'm not sure how good Michigan is. I'm not sure how good Penn State is. They both have some good things, and chief among them that they're undefeated at this stage of the season. But I think there are some, legitimate concerns and unanswered questions. And until either of those teams get it done in the crunch this season, I think those questions will remain. And it's kind of the same thing really for Minnesota. I mean, Minnesota has looked phenomenal to this point in the season. But I'm not sure. Sparty has not looked good.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that there's no way Michigan State turns it around between now and when Penn State faces them. But right now, at the moment, I mean, Michigan State is, I'd have to sit down and look, but 11th, 12th best team maybe in the Big Ten, right? I mean, at the moment, they are not. I mean, Minnesota at the moment looks like the class of the West.
They're flip-flop,
right?
Those two. The Michigan State was a top 10 program in the preseason, right? Top 15.
Yeah,
and Minnesota was nowhere to be found, and they've completely role reversed. But yes, the West it's theirs to lose. There's no doubt.
Yeah, at this point.
But I mean, the fact what's happening to Michigan State is Jesus. Little theory on that maybe is that he relies on the transfer portal a whole bunch. And if it doesn't meld together, it could turn into that.
Yeah, it is.
Guys aren't playing together. They're not playing as a team. They're not cohesive, and they're just getting stomped right now.
Yeah, and they're getting
humiliated,
beaten badly at the line of scrimmage, which you're not used to seeing from Michigan State. I mean, even in the games and seasons that they've struggled, you're not used to seeing them just get smacked around at the line, and they got smacked around pretty good in that game on Saturday. Well, really, the last couple of weeks.
That's going because Washington smacked them around out west there for a while, and then Minnesota goes and does it. So alarming how bad this season is for them. But again, they could turn it around just as quick, and come Thanksgiving weekend, they might have only 2 losses, and might be playing for something. So we'll see. Fantastic season so far, everywhere. I mean.
It's been an amazing season.
So, Oklahoma being the most Oklahoma thing of all time and just losing to a team that has no right losing to it once a year. They do it every year.
Yeah.
Again, they go back to they're the happiest people in the world about this the expanded playoff system. That means they're going to get in even though they lose their annual game where they completely screw up.
Yeah, that one was tough to explain on Saturday. I will say that one was
nuts,
bad,
nuts.
But it's been that type of a season, right? Like it just
And USC is the darling of the world right now.
At the moment,
And they had to score late to beat Oregon State. They had to score very late to win that game. So I don't know if it was. Oh God, no, not Stephen A. Who's the guy on Fox? The morning guy, afternoon guy.
Colin Cowherd.
Colin Cowherd. It's either him or Screaming A said that they were like, shit, what the hell am I thinking now? I gotta remember it.
Yeah,
but it was worth it. But obviously not. I can't remember it.
No, it happens. Thoughts get lost.
Jeez.
That's we'll search for it and see if we can dig it up before the end of the show. Well, no, but I think when you look at college football across the board right now, right? Like a lot of it is, I think, and it's why I do think Penn State has a chance to do something special. You have to have athletes. I mean, there's no way around that. I don't care how great your camaraderie is. If you don't have, big time athletes, you can't create holes. You don't have
aren't big and fast. You're going to lose.
Yes, big time speed. Then it's not going to work. But presuming that you have comparable athleticism, I do think having the mix that it feels like Penn State has right now is really beneficial, where you have that infusion of enthusiasm and energy from the new guys like Allen and Singleton and Aller, but you also have the savvy veterans who have been through it all and can kind of let's sit down and settle it down a little bit with Clifford and Mustafa, and I think there is a real nice balance and chemistry on this team right now. And again, we'll see. It's all talk to me until we get through that 3-game stretch, and then we'll sit down. And I don't even think during that stretch. I mean, no matter how the Michigan and Minnesota games, it's get through those 3 games, then let's look at the total picture, and then let's try to evaluate. And again, it's not that things can't go drastically better or worse down the stretch from there, but you feel like you're going to have a pretty good sense of what this team really is by the time we finish up with the matchup against the Buckeyes here at Beaver Stadium.
We had 2 redshirt freshmen on the show last night, and Dom DeLuca and Tangwell. And Chris made an unbelievable point in saying, not to them after they had left, about how these guys, they're both redshirt freshmen. We have all this influx of the star freshman guys that are coming in. But if you don't have good leadership, and I think that Chris made the comparison and said, this team reminds me of the 05 team right now, when you had some very, very, very strong-willed leaders who were coming off some very, very bad years.
Yeah.
Who made a decision amongst themselves, amongst that team, and says, this isn't effing going to happen again. This ain't going to effing happen. No. We're stopping it now. And then in 2005, when they brought in those the strong receiving class, the Derek Williams, the Justin King, the Lydell, the Norwoods, the Deion Butlers, and that whole class came in. They didn't have they were the heart and soul of the team, but it was still the leadership of the team, of the senior league, that led to those guys having those successful careers, and especially that 2005 season. It really, I was like, holy, I would say, Chris, you're right. It really, really is. And Paterno, and any team, but specifically Paterno, he was always a big fan of senior leadership being, let the team lead the team. And Jair Brown was on the show a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about it, and he was just like, this is not a coach-driven team. This is a team, a senior or an elder statesman or a team-driven team. And I was like, damn, I like to hear that.
Yeah,
I really do, because they're playing for each other right now, and that's what is setting this team different than the last few years, in my opinion. I mean, I know that I'm closer to these guys. I mean, I actually have a relationship with some of these guys now. Again, it's an hour a week I see these guys, but I'm so impressed by these guys that I know these were not the same guys we had the last few years here. There's no way. There's no way that, the way these guys are talking right now, how they're talking, I'm like, man, these guys are – it's just going to be it's a fun season right now, Jeffrey. It really, really is.
Yeah, and I think to that end, I think – and I get that every team went through COVID. So I get that this is not a Penn State unique situation. But while everybody went through it, we all handled it and saw it differently, right? Like, I mean, no two experiences were exactly the same. Some lost a bunch of immediate family members. Others didn't lose anybody really close to them. Some got horribly sick. Some never got affected. So there's all of that just individually. But I think also from a team standpoint, and I'm not blaming all of what happened the last 2 years just on COVID, and now the COVID's relatively past us.
I'm with you.
I feel like no matter what you say anymore about that, you're going to get people arguing about it. But I do think that this program, having the ability to be together, and again, there's just a lot of things that it feels like are coming together at the right time. And one of those things is the coaching staff. And it's not that I think the coaching staff the last couple of years was bad but I think this one, I think having Jurisic back on offense has been a tremendous blessing for Sean Clifford and for the offense as a whole. And I think Manny Diaz has just kind of like the freshman running backs on offense, he's just given a new life, a new charge into the troops. And I do think schematically he is just, you don't know what's coming as an offense. I mean, it's again, we talk all the time about it. You know, offenses want to keep defenses off balance, but this defense is going to keep offenses off balance because it is, and they're just adding to it each week, right? Like what that defense is going to present to Michigan, I can hardly wait to see because I just think it's again so varied, and I think that's going to be one of the really intriguing. Well, I think that's going to be the most intriguing part of that Michigan matchup for me is seeing just what Penn State does on both sides of the ball, like the approach that Penn State takes.
We're going to be at Michigan.
Yep, on both sides of the ball, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And again, I just think sometimes it comes together, sometimes it doesn't, and you can have really good coaches that it just doesn't pan out, and you can have really good players and it just doesn't pan out, and sometimes it just all comes together. And again, I'm not willing to say that this is definitively that type of season yet for Penn State because I want to see that 3 games in their entirety. And then after those 3 games, I think we can sit back and say, okay, yeah, you know what? Penn State is really, really good, just not quite elite to go back to the conversation. Or maybe we say, my God, they are elite. Or maybe we say, yeah, we're still a long ways away. But it feels like this team and the staff that it has, the players they have, the way this season's set up, and again, assuming the Nittany Lions take care of business against Northwestern on Saturday, I think you have 2 weeks to really dial in here for Michigan and, set the stage for what could be, an absolutely
I had to look at my phone. I was
fantastic season.
I thought Michigan played Iowa the week before us. Michigan plays Iowa this week, and then they play Indiana next week.
Okay. I
had it in my head that they were playing Iowa before us, but either or. I'm very interested to watch this Michigan team. Very interested because I want to see how good the Maryland team was.
Yeah.
Or was it just Michigan has not played anybody? They've literally played nobody.
Yeah.
And then their one bigger game has been Maryland, who's a traditional doormat, or they could be better. We don't know. So we'll see a little bit more this weekend. But I go back to my question. Have you ever not looked forward to a bye week? I mean, I've always looked forward to a bye week. Like, okay, this is recharge batteries and this and that. I don't. I wish we didn't have it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wish we continue the momentum. And
I hear what you're saying. I guess I'm going to take the glass half full approach and maybe foolishly given the track record here, but I just think with that 3-game stretch, and with Michigan in particular, because I mean it's not like they're going to be spending those 2 weeks putting in wrinkles for Minnesota and Ohio State, right? Like, I mean, they are going to be dialed in on Michigan. But I think having those 2 weeks and then launching into those 3 games, I like that they have that extra week after these 5 games to sit back, assess, let the coaches kind of figure out what the best pieces are together, the things they want to add, the wrinkles that they will add for Michigan. I don't think could be coming at a better time, really, in terms of and even from a health standpoint, right? Like this is you want to get your guys as healthy and ready to go for that Michigan game, and then the following 2 as you possibly can. And I just think from that perspective, I hear what you're saying in terms of momentum and everything. I just think that
I'm a moron fan too. I just want to.
Well, but I think also part of it is that hopefully these guys are mature enough, and the young guys
I think
will be able to learn enough and use those 2 weeks as a huge benefit. I mean, it's almost like a redshirt season, right? Like the redshirt season is beneficial if the kid taking it works his tail off and actually gets better. That bye week is going to be tremendously beneficial if the coaches and players use it to optimize their opportunities against Michigan. And again, I also like the way those 3 games are playing out in terms of from Penn State's perspective, because I think right now, this could play out completely differently. I think of Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio State right now. I think Michigan is really good, but I think it's the least of the 3. I actually think Minnesota right now is next to Ohio State. To me, to this point, the most impressive team in the Big Ten. Close between Penn State and Ohio State.
What
right
do you
now.
see?
At Penn State and Minnesota. What's that?
I'm seeing they can run the ball pretty nasty right now.
I think
Minnesota.
And I think Minnesota has a lot of what Penn State has in terms of that chemistry, and I think both of their head coaches get a lot of guff from outsiders looking in, because it's there's that salesmanship aspect to both of them. But I think both of them get their kids buying into the programs, and I think both are big believers in that team chemistry component, and I think they both have it rolling this season. But I like the fact that Penn State has won a couple of big road games, so I don't think going to Ann Arbor is, again, going to be daunting. That being said, tough place to play and a really good team. So, I mean, it's, certainly by no stretch of the imagination am I thinking that is a given. But I think it is a very winnable game. And I think, if Penn State wins that, I like their chances. And even though I'm going to predict a blowout loss for Penn State against Minnesota, I like their chances in that whiteout game here, because that is an atmosphere that, and I get Minnesota has been all of the Big Ten places and big atmospheres. I don't think there's anything quite like that whiteout.
Starting to get those calls yet?
In college football. I have received a couple.
I've gotten 3 calls.
Yeah.
Hey, I think I'm coming up for a game. Which one do you think? Ohio State or Minnesota? Which one? Oh,
yeah.
Let me see.
But then you have
I have a shoebox opening when I sleep in that. I mean,
so if this thing plays out right, then you come off of the that whiteout atmosphere, hopefully with a win, right?
Yeah.
And so if Penn State wins both those, now you have a ton of momentum going into that Ohio State game. And again, I'm really impressed with Ohio State. But I don't think there's any team that's unbeatable. And you like the fact that Penn State's here for it. So I think that all plays out well in terms of giving Penn State a chance to optimize its potential for this season. And again, we'll see how it all plays out. It's all talk and speculation.
5 minutes ago about Fleck and James, and they say their coaching style is their teams buy into them and they get their teams ready to go and stuff like that.
Yep.
And I think that's a double-edged sword. Now that in my head, I'm thinking about that because if you think that they buy in and then it doesn't go right, when they do buy in, it doesn't go right. It's quick to lose a team like that. Maybe that's why they've had some catastrophic failures here and in Minnesota in the last few years. I mean, if you're buying in and then you buy in completely and it doesn't go your way, and you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's easy to lose a team like that.
It can be.
Just going back to what you had said, I was one of the.
Yeah. No, I think it can be because then you start looking, elsewhere.
Well, you said it was going to be like this, and when it goes like that, it's great. The momentum is huge. There's also a steep drop off if it doesn't go the way that they were talking about. Interesting point, Goon.
Which is why that 2016 team still remains one of the most amazing stories, because I mean that team obviously did have complete buy-in, but stuck with it when on 2 counts. I mean, you got blown out, and you lost the tough emotional game. I mean those are 2 reasons to go. Yeah, it was the tough emotional in state, right? Yep. So I'm saying you lost a gritty, tough game against a rival, and then you got absolutely your ears kicked in, and you still turned that around. Like that speaks volumes about the intestinal fortitude of that squad.
Big words, Ed. Big words.
Every now and then we pull them out.
Well, you're not like Booch. I mean, so. Hey, other good news about doing this show with Chris and doing with the players now is that they are redshirt freshmen. And I said, what? And they said, well, I'm a redshirt freshman. And I said, wait a minute, there's no COVID behind your years here or anything like that? So we have 3 more years of hearing about the COVID thing. Well, he's a COVID sophomore. Yeah. He's a COVID junior. He's a COVID 19th year player here. So it was just fun hearing those guys because it just sucked too, because Langdon and DeLuca, they both lost their senior years
in high school.
COVID,
yeah. That's such a strange.
Blew his knee out, so he didn't. But they actually played, but he blew his knee out. But Tangwell, they just didn't even have a season, and so they both went 21, 22, 23 months without ever playing football in between games and stuff like that. So I'm telling you, I just like the way this team is set up. I really do. I mean, in what Booch said last night. He had me thinking, man, and that is these guys are buying in and to the seniors, to the upperclassmen. And that is how you build a foundation for a very successful program, where it's just handed down. James doesn't need to keep hammering these guys about it. It's handed down and taught to these guys. And if you have bad leaderships, you will rot from the core from the inside out. No doubt. And I guarantee you that's what has happened in the last 3 or 4 years here. Since 2016, we've had a couple bad seasons, and we lose a game, and then it just gives up, and that starts within leadership. And I think that we're in a whole different ball game right now this year. And I'm ecstatic about it.
Yeah, I'm happy for sure with what's happened so far. I want to see how these three games play out before I try to.
You gotta be a bull before you can't just grow your horns after the Michigan game now.
Go too crazy because. Again, we've seen it before, and it hasn't played out well.
It happens all the time.
And we were saying these same things going into the Iowa game last year, right? I mean, we really were.
That's what I said last week. Is that this season was very reminiscent of last year. And did I tell you that when I watched that Auburn game and he got hit?
Yeah.
And I said, oh Jesus, here it goes. Here we go. But again, nothing happened out of it. But big weekend, huge weekend. You got a lot of folks coming up?
Yeah, we do have a few coming up this weekend. So, that'll be fun.
When's wrestling start, by the way?
November 11th, I think, is the first duel.
How's Kale's confidence?
I think he's doing okay. Think he's doing all right.
So November 11th, camp and all that? You guys are going – you got Army this year again, right?
They'll be at the Army West Point Invitational. It'll be an open tournament. Yep,
Nice.
up at West Point.
And what's that? Is it in December, November? When are we talking about?
That'll be November 20th.
The weekend.
I believe, yeah.
That's
should be a Saturday. No, that's a Sunday because then Tuesday. Yeah, that's a Sunday because it's that Tuesday, the 22nd, is the NWCA All-Star meet. Three Penn Staters will be in that.
Interesting.
So
looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be.
Heck yeah.
It'll be fun. Let's turn. Speaking of
I don't want
season.
to talk about Thursday, Jeff. I mean, I didn't want to bring it up.
No, there's no need to talk about Thursday.
Sure.
But let's talk about the rest of the NFL because it has been just like I was telling everybody. I figured the Colts would beat the Chiefs, and apparently some people were surprised by that game.
A little bit. You watch any of it?
I did not watch it. I was following it, but
the game I'm talking about is Miami and Buffalo.
Yeah,
you watch any of that on the Red Zone, or you just
no, I didn't see any of that.
I'm telling you right now, it was as physical a football game as I've seen in a long time. I mean, dudes were getting carried off that field almost every play, and the weather did not help. It was 88 degrees and humid and sunny. Guys are getting drug off the field and cramping up and this and that. I mean, it took some serious you-know-whats to win that game.
Well, but I do think that is. I forget who I was watching over the weekend, and that they said, yeah, it was a former NFL player. He's like, people don't understand how much of a home field advantage the Dolphins have. He said that is a 1 o'clock game there in September. Oof. Is absolutely brutal because there's no way you can be in as great a shape and conditioned and all that. You are not ready for that heat and that humidity at that time of the year, and especially if you're a couple games in.
If you don't live there, you don't get it.
Yeah, and listen, I do think – I think Miami is legit. I think that is a playoff team. I think it's a really, really good football team. I still don't think – and I get the Dolphins won the game, all credit to them, and I know the Bills' safety there is out for the season. I get it. I still like the overall power index. If it was me, Buffalo's still the team to beat in the NFL this year. But what that game definitively showed is that Miami can compete on any given Sunday with anybody, and that Miami, I do think, much like I think the AFC North is still, no matter what the standings say, it is this year. It is Baltimore and Cincinnati, and then Pittsburgh and Cleveland. And I get it, Bill Belichick and everything. That division is the Dolphins and the Bills, and then it's the Patriots and the Jets. And I don't think there's that much separation right now. That is a much improved Jets team.
It is.
And I don't think, even with a healthy Mac Jones, I don't think that's a Patriots team that's going to the playoffs.
What happened to him?
And no. And
I have never heard of this.
I think they're in some trouble.
A significantly high ankle sprain that may require surgery.
Yeah.
What in the hell is a surgery?
That I don't know.
I know high ankle sprains are ridiculously bad. They're worse than breaks. I get it. I actually had one time. It sucked. But I don't know what a significantly sprained high ankle sprain, what could you fix with surgery?
That's a good question.
But man, he looked like he was in some pain walking off that field, hopping off that field. But it was a good weekend watching all those games, and obviously
But it is hard to assess.
The star of the show is out of the southeastern Pennsylvania there, Jeffrey Ironhead Byers. I mean, everybody's just playing for second place in the NFC right now, in my opinion.
I will say, I do think to this point of the season, I really do. I think the Eagles look like the most complete team in the NFC. And outside of the Bills and maybe the Dolphins, and listen, I think the Chiefs are still. I get that was a bad loss.
You can't throw Brady out of there either.
No, but I don't think. Well, that's true because they were so hampered with their receiver core. So yeah, that Tampa with the full complement of receivers at the end of the season. Yes, I'm.
It was so bad for Tampa they called Antonio Brown. No, it was not. It was not that bad.
No,
they were going to take a loss and they call that knucklehead.
As any right-minded thinking team would do.
It's your guy, man.
But it is hard.
You're
It is hard to get a read on the NFL right now, right? Like, I mean, it feels like because we thought we knew the Colts were awful, and now it feels like, well, no, we don't really know that because awful teams don't beat the Chiefs.
What the Jacksonville Jaguars did to the Chargers?
Yeah,
my Lord.
And Trevor Lawrence is looking like Trevor Lawrence, right? Like that's why you take a guy like that, right? I mean, he really is. He is. I mean, looking
Urban
now,
left that cupboard full down there. I mean, geez,
no
doubt about it.
So
it's all about Urban down there.
But this season is going to be interesting. They were I forget who was listening to. I think it was this morning, but the Packers' schedule the next 4 weeks is abysmal, and so you're going to get. If Green Bay takes care of business, you're going to have a 6-1 team that is going to be once again the talk. But I don't think they're not that Packers. From a playoff standpoint, I can't see that team
they're exposed
going more than a round in the playoffs. But there's a lot of teams that I think you're trying to figure out, and like every year. But it's going to come down to some injuries, right? And you don't. It's like the NHL playoffs. Some of it is just a battle of attrition, and we'll see. When healthy, yes, I think Philadelphia is certainly as good, if not better, than anybody else in the NFC right now. And I still think the Bills are the team to beat in the AFC. But man, there's a lot of
awesomeness.
Fun, dynamic teams and players to watch right now. And and the Cowboys are becoming a compelling story for sure here as well. And that's
Cooper Rush.
2 really nice wins for that that program. And Micah Parsons is
he's not bad.
Is still looking every bit the part of at the very least the defensive player of the year. If not a serious threat from that side of the ball to be the league's most valuable player this season. I mean, he is having that type of a start to his campaign.
I was trying to find a picture, but did you see the picture of the Eagles left tackle Malati, next to Anthony Munoz last week?
No.
I got to find it for you, Head. First of all, Munoz is a god to me because he's enormous. And then he looks like me he looks like you standing next to me, next to Malati.
Is that right?
It's unbelievable. Cannot believe. I'm just like, holy God, who is that guy? Oh my God, that's Anthony Munoz. And you got to say to yourself, holy crap! And it looks like me standing next to you, but these are grown men. I know I'm a large man, but Anthony Munoz looks like a young man, like a child next to this dude. So. Good show, good time.
Yeah, real quick, I just want to go back to looking at the Big Ten as a whole. Goon, we think we know Ohio State is the team to beat, but I don't know that we know a whole lot after that. That Iowa Rutgers game was a weird game because Rutgers largely controlled that game, but the final score was lopsided in Iowa's favor. But much like the SEC, I think the Big Ten has, to me right now, it looks like it's Ohio State up here. And I'm not saying Penn State or other teams couldn't beat Ohio State, but overall, Ohio State's up here. Then I think it's Penn State, Minnesota, Michigan on kind of that next tier. And then I think you have a host of teams that are kind of trying to figure out exactly where they may or may not fit in here on the overall ladder. And I think really it's the same thing when you start looking around at all of these conferences. That is crazy.
That's enormous.
Yeah, that is a big man.
Look at his pinky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, not good. The old adage, anybody can beat anybody, and especially in the NFL, it's appropriate, apropos, but especially I think in the Big Ten right now. I mean, who's to say? I mean, does Rutgers not give Ohio State fits?
Well, yeah,
they always. It's like Purdue and Rutgers, for some reason, give Ohio State fits, and then back 15 years ago, Illinois used to give them fits. Do one of those teams jump up and sneak up and bite Ohio State in the butt? Do we get bit in the butt? Do we?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, again, there are, for as much as my focus is on those 3 games, there is certainly the potential that Penn State gets caught up if those 3 games go well.
Yes.
2-1 or 3, the
Oh my
unthinkable
God.
3-0, right? I mean, because Maryland and Rutgers are both at the very least good teams this year, like solid, and in both of their cases, right, like every season would be made with a victory over Penn State, let alone one where Penn State is going to be thinking, playoffs and all of that stuff. So, yeah, it's not that I think Penn State's out of the woods if it gets through those 3 games. It's just that I do think those are the 3 best teams, aside from Penn State, in the Big Ten this season, and you just happen to get them one after another following the bye week. And I think, again, it'll be a fun stretch. And I do like the way it plays out. Again, to me, you want to get that road game against, again, I think at the moment, at least, the least of the 3, which, again, is not to say, because I think all 3 of those teams, I think Michigan, Minnesota, and Penn State are all very comparable. Exactly where they fit in the national picture, I'm still not sure. I don't know if any of those 3 are legitimately like threatening to be a top 5 type of team, or whether they're all in that like 10 to 20. It feels like they're all at least in that group to me at this stage. But I think we're going to find out.
Interesting in the next 2 months, isn't it?
It is, and I think it's. Again, Ohio State looked really, really good, but I don't know how much of that too is Wisconsin is certainly not the Wisconsin that we've. As they showed the week before,
couple years now, they've had hiccups.
Yeah,
bad hiccups.
So I think, we'll see. We'll see how this whole thing plays out. Again, everybody had, including me, had Georgia heads and shoulders above, and then Kent State comes along. And again, I'm not ready to say Georgia's in big trouble, but I don't think that gap is necessarily as wide as some of us were imagining between Georgia and Alabama. And maybe in Ohio State and the rest of the field. I do think Ohio State, they just look like a team that can beat you in a bunch of different ways. They look like a big-time team on both sides of the line of scrimmage. And again, it doesn't mean that big-time teams can lose games. They have those off nights. Team has the right scheme on the right day. So it's not that I think any of those teams are unbeatable, but I still think Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State are rightfully the top 3 teams. And if I'm guessing right now, those are going to be the 3 teams that are going to be there at the end of the year.
I really can't wait. It's just a fun time of year, fun time to be here, all that stuff,
Yeah, and I will. The other thing I really do love about Penn State, and I think there will be lots of opportunities again on Saturday, but I do love the way the one thing you have to love about Sean Clifford is this year is that he is taking care of the football, right? Since the pick 6 against Purdue, he has been really, really good.
Since the guy threw up.
And indeed.
After a pick 6.
And the defense is just doing a tremendous job of creating turnovers and taking advantage of those opportunities. And I think that is a recipe for winning any game, anytime, anywhere. And so I think, Penn State, again, is on track to at least get itself in the mix here, and then we'll see how October shakes out. That is going to do it for today. We will be back on Thursday. We'll go ahead and do the Thursday show on Thursday.
Okay.
I guess that was a better idea by you. We will be back then. Until then, be good and be safe.
Make more good in the all-new Sportage X-Pro. Kia, movement that inspires.
Quaker Steak and Lube is throwing open the garage doors and setting up the umbrellas. It's patio season. Come enjoy great food, drinks, and fun in the sun. There's always something happening at Quaker Steak and Lube, but we're really amping up our event calendars for our favorite time of year. Visit thelube.com to find out what's happening at your local Lube this season. Lunch, happy hour, dinner, or late night, indoors or outside, at Quaker Steak and Lube, you'll always find big flavors, friendly faces, and lots of fun.
New Trail Brewing Company proudly crafts their beers right here in central Pennsylvania. Brewed with only the best possible ingredients, New Trail produces a variety of year-round brands as well as weekly experimental recipes. New Trail Broken Heels is Pennsylvania's favorite local hazy IPA. This beer is smooth and full-bodied. Hand-selected Citra hops lead to notes of bright clementine and juicy ruby red grapefruit. Broken Heels is perfect for a pregame tailgate all the way through the victory celebration.
What's the best mid-size pickup? Tacoma. What's the #1 mid-size truck in resale value? Tacoma. Want to get great gas mileage, 4 doors, and 4-wheel drive? Tacoma. Seoka Toyota of Williamsport has over 25 available right now. You can lease a brand new, never-driven Toyota Tacoma for just $379 a month. That's 30 months, 3,000 cash or trade, 10,000 miles a year. This is while supplies last. Buy yours or reserve yours today and see the Seoka difference. And remember, tell them Johnny sent you.